Hello everyone, welcome to the Departamento Loratorum. My name is Max, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Feast of Blades. Space Marine chapters in Warhammer 40k are obsessed with the bonds of brotherhood. Most of these bonds are internal between members of a chapter, but some chapters also seek to build and maintain camaraderie with one another. And, as one would expect, one of the most common ways that Space Marines like to use to build those bonds is honorable combat. Perhaps the most famous example of this is the Feast of Blades. The Feast of Blades is a ritual contest of arms started by Rogal Dorn to ensure that the bonds of brotherhood remained between all of his sons, no matter how separate they became culturally and geographically. But like many things in Warhammer, the Feast of Blades did not just spring into existence in its current form. It has been iterated on and changed throughout the years since its introduction. Examining it will both help us to learn more about the Imperial Fists and their successors, and how Warhammer lore can change and develop over time. The Feast of Blades was first introduced as a concept in the 5th edition Space Marine Codex. The only descriptions we get of it say that it's held every 100 years, and involves a contest between 12 chapters. We hear of the 812th, 813th, and 814th Feast, held in 749, 849, and 949 M41 respectively. We also learn that Hervald Strom, a champion of the Iron Knights chapter, won the 812th and 813th Feasts, becoming the only champion to win 2 consecutive feasts. We also learned that the 814th Feast featured only 8 of the 12 chapters in attendance, with various wars preventing the other 4 from coming. The Imperial Fists and Crimson Fists were tied for victory. The Feast of Blades was fairly ill-defined at this point, as we knew nothing about it save that it was a contest between 12 chapters, presumably involving blades, and that it involved the Imperial Fists, Crimson Fists, and Iron Knights. At this stage, it was still not stated that it was a contest solely among Imperial Fist successors, although given that all of the known attendants were Sons of Dorn, it's easy to see where that idea came from. It's also important to mention that, with the Feast of Blades being held every century, the first Feast of Blades would have had to have been held 81,400 years before 949 M41, which not only predates the Imperium, but would have been during the Stone Age, based on the timeline given in the 5th edition Codex. The next mention of the Feast of Blades was in the Deathwatch Rights of War RPG sourcebook. There it was officially described as a contest between at least 12 chapters, all Imperial Fist successors, with the Black Templars being added as a confirmed member. The purpose of the Feast of Blades is described as maintaining the bonds between the sons of Rogal Dorn, as they can be spread far and wide across the galaxy, with centuries passing between contact with one another. The Feast of Blades provides at least one link to one another and ensures that, despite their differences in temperament, the Sons of Dorn remain united. The feast itself is also described as a, usually, non-lethal duel between champions, fought according to ancient traditions over several days. It is still described as taking place every century. Each chapter chooses a champion according to their own unique rites and traditions, although all are said to be both extremely honorable and extremely skilled. Many chapter masters of the Imperial Fist and their successors are said to have served as champions in a Feast of Blades at one point or another, so these champions are some of the most respected and skilled members of their chapter. By far the most substantial information we've been given on the Feast of Blades so far has been from the book Legion of the Damned. This book focuses on a member of the Excoriators, a second founding Imperial Fist successor, named Zachariah Kirsch. The first few chapters focus on Kirsch taking part in the 816th Feast of Blades. In this book, we learn that the Feast of Blades was started by Rogal Dorn himself shortly after the second founding, to not only ensure that bonds were maintained between his sons, but also to commemorate the losses in the Iron Cage. The Iron Cage was an incident where the Imperial Fist Legion suffered heavy casualties assaulting an Iron Warrior's fortress constructed by Perturabo himself on Sebastus IV during the Great Scouring. This turned out to be a trap, and many Imperial Fists lost their lives in the fortress. As a result of this, many feasts, including the 816th, are set in arenas meant to simulate the adversity the 7th Legion faced in that cage. In the 816th Feast of Blades, the arena had a constantly changing layout, both during and between matches. And in the final round, blades coated in a paralyzing toxin were used. Attending Space Marines observe the combat from seats constructed above the arena. The matches themselves are incredible displays of skill, with each warrior having to try their hardest to defeat the other. Unsurprising, given that these are all some of the most skilled combatants each chapter has to offer. In all Feast of Blades, combatants are expected to wear Carapace armor, like a Scout Marine, in the colors of the 7th Legion that they all claim descent from, with their chapter symbol being represented on one shoulder guard, and all fighting is done with simple gladii. Legion of the Damned also shows that chapters can send multiple different champions, usually company or chapter champions, veterans, or other skilled combatants. The excoriators send Kirsch, former chapter champion and banner bearer, with this rank being called Scourge by the chapter, and members of their veteran company, among others. We also see a chaplain of the Fire Lords, Sword Brethren of the Black Templars, and the personal champion of the Imperial Fist chapter master take part. While the duels are normally non-lethal, they are still dangerous, with Kirsch losing an eye and several combatants almost dying. Certain injuries are also looked down on, and Kirsch himself was almost disqualified after chopping off an Iron Knight's hand, an unwelcome reminder of Dorn's disappearance. Rogal Dorn was last seen aboard a Black Legion spaceship during a Black Crusade, with the only thing being found of him after the fact being his disembodied hand. The renewing of the bonds of brotherhood is also expanded upon, as the excoriators are seen using the ties forged at the feast to have their brother chapters provide support and relief on various fronts, showing that the contest has a practical side in addition to the traditional and the symbolic. The victor of the feast receives the Sword of Sebastus, or Dorn's Blade, the sword used by Rogal Dorn himself in the Iron Cage. It is a simple, almost completely unadorned blade made of a single sheet of adamantium. The only decorations are a prism attached to the pommel and the numeral 7 for the 7th Legion on the crossguard. The victorious chapter gains great honor in receiving and guarding this blade, and also has the honor of calling the next feast. This is also expanded upon, as the feast must be called every 100 years, but they can be called sooner, providing an explanation for the inaccurate numbering. This would mean approximately 80 feasts have been called every millennia since the Horus Heresy ended. Since the 814th feast took place in 949 M41, and Legion of the Damned takes place sometime at the end of the 41st millennia, before the era Indomitus, 2 feasts have been called in no more than 50 years. And, spoilers, since Kirsch wins, becoming the first excoriator to ever do so, they would have the honor of calling the next one. It is also stated to be common to call the feast on a planet where the chapter has won a great victory. In this case, it was on the planet Samarkand IV, which the Imperial Fist had participated in cleansing of orcs. This also means that the Imperial Fist are presumably the victors of the 815th Feast of Blades. This appears to have become the mainly accepted lore for the Feast of Blades, and, while no other media has gone this in-depth on it, there have been some expansions offered in more recent pieces of lore. The 8th edition Chaos Space Marine Codex describes an unknown Feast of Blades, called the Feast of 100 Duels afterwards, that was attacked by World Eaters. Although the Imperial Fists and their successors managed to defeat the traitors, the spilled blood and skillful combat still saw the skies rumble with Khorne's pleasure. Another Feast of Blades took place on the ice fields of Inwit, the homeworld of Rogal Dorn, during the War of the Beast. The book, Shadow of Ullanor, describes the Imperial Fist successors, the Fists Exemplar, Black Templars, Crimson Fists, Soul Drinkers, Excoriators, Executioners, and Iron Knights, meeting on this world after a grave defeat. The Fists Exemplar, victors of the previous feasts, had the honor of calling this one, with their champion, Chapter Master Maximus Thane, emerging victorious, and using the event to unify and reinvigorate the demoralized chapters in spectacular fashion. The first founding background book also shows unique customs for the Feast of Blades among the various Imperial Fist successor chapters. The Executioners hold theirs on abandoned spaceships and require the taking of trophies, usually weapons and armor, but some of the more barbaric chapters, like the Executioners for example, may take body parts. The Red Templars require each combatant to fight against all others before a victor can be declared, making their feasts some of the longest. The Celestial Lions ban metal weapons and require each fighter to share their story of the fight with other attendees. If you were considering making lore for your own Imperial Fist successor, what they would do for the Feast of Blades would be an interesting addition. From Legion of the Damned onward, the lore of only 12 chapters taking part has never been mentioned again. It seems as though it has been abandoned due to the expansion in the number of known successor chapters. While most known Imperial Fist descendants take part, some do not. We have no evidence of the invaders or subjugators taking part, for example, despite having no stated reason not to. Although, of course, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The Exorcists, despite being an Imperial Fist successor, also do not participate, although this is less surprising given their differences from the other successor chapters. So this is the Feast of Blades. What started out as a minor bit of flavor in 5th edition has been expanded into one of the most notable traditions for the Imperial Fists and their successors. And this really is a microcosm of 40k lore as a whole. Flavor text in earlier editions is expanded into new novels, models, or other ideas. I do love that about the setting, as it encourages you to take those interesting lore blurbs and expand on them yourself for your own army. And the Feast of Blades is an excellent example of how to provide additional flavor for your army of Imperial Fists or their successors, and can work as a template for what to do with other groups of Space Marine chapters. While other Space Marine Brotherhoods don't appear to have anything like it yet, I wouldn't be surprised if GW eventually adds something like this for the Space Wolves or Salamanders, say. And again, there is nothing stopping you from creating one yourself. If you are interested in the Feast of Blades, I would recommend Legion of the Damned. It is a good book. I enjoy seeing Kirsch's struggles, and the Legion of the Damned itself appearing is awesome. The War of the Beasts series also focuses heavily on the Imperial Fists and their successors, so if you wanted to see more of them as a whole, you could check that out. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this. Please leave a like if you found this interesting, and comment if this was informative, or if you have a suggestion for a future video. I will be working on a bit of a longer project over the next couple of weeks. I will still try to put out weekly videos, but they might not be as in-depth. But I will still try to make them informative, or at least fun. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Bye!